Oh yeah, that music can only mean one thing. It's time for the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. I'm Greg White. The other guy is Jason Pridmore. And Jay, it's been a little while, man. How are you?
Good, G-Dub. Been getting, I wouldn't call it hate, but I've been getting a lot of people texting us, or texting me anyways, and emailing saying, you guys take a week off? Because, yep, we took a week off.
But I thought people listened to the podcast because at the end of the last podcast, we said we were going to take a couple weeks off.
We were, but that's the contradiction there, isn't it? Because you wonder, I think I had some people just basically saying that they missed, they were traveling, they were doing whatever, which is really cool. So for all of you out there, thank you for those emails, texts, and other things through social media. But it was nice to have a week off, and there wasn't a lot going on. Obviously, the 8-hour went over on the weekend, and we'll talk about that maybe next week. But yeah, it's been nice having a little bit of a break. Been chilling out at home. What about you? What have you been up to? You've been traveling still, haven't you?
Yeah, I just started like a 9 or actually a 10-week run of weekends where I'm gone. It's a mix between archery work, motorcycle racing work. I have one archery tournament where I'm just going to shoot and no work, and then I get to go to a wedding in Colorado. So I don't have a free weekend until beginning of October. So it's cool. Good life.
It's not bad, yeah, and I'm in the same boat a little bit because I've been again fielding a lot of questions about my leg and my ankle. It's getting better. I've actually played a lot of golf, which has been nice. Kind of getting back out, playing some golf with some friends, and but it's looking like I'm talking to some specialists right now about my leg and kind of figure out what I'm going to do with it. And I might start getting something done in November, December. I'm not totally sure, but got to get done because it's at that stage now. It hasn't been bothering me too much. My pinky toe, I got a lot of ribbing for that, but it is getting better. And no, but it's what do we got? We got next couple week and a half away. We got Sonoma. This year's just flying by. It's ripping past. Last time we were at Laguna, there was some good racing up there. So hopefully Sonoma will be a bit of the same.
Yeah, so this is our MotoAmerica like kind of warm-up podcast. So coming up on August 10th and 11th is round 7 of the 2019 championship, Sonoma Raceway, and the Cycle Gear Championship of Sonoma, a track that's been on and off the circuit, I guess, Jay, you could say. I mean, we've been around the circuit a long time. MotoAmerica only started going there in 2017, but I know that you love Sonoma Raceway. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like the track itself and what these riders are going to be facing?
Well, it's a bit. I've ridden that track configuration because of my advanced age and all. I've ridden that track and probably 6 to 8 different configurations because throughout the course of the years, I mean, I went there when I was very young with my father. So I've seen that track. I've seen the place change a lot. And as much as it's changed, a lot of it has stayed the same as well. But the configuration with old turn 11 and building chicanes and things like that to make the place a little bit safer has definitely rerouted and changed over the years. Some of the most dangerous parts of the track that now would be deemed very, very, very dangerous. That they were some of the best turns that we used to go through, but there was a high risk level there, mostly because bikes would go into the hay bales and then into a wall that would then bring the bike back out onto the track. So it was, I'm glad that they slowed those places down. I'm just glad it's still on the calendar. I think it's a great area for it. How many times did you race there? Did you race there much?
I've only actually raced there like 3 times. And
yeah,
I know one of those times was when there was water seeping up through. So we had to cancel, it was just like, it had rained before we got there or whatever. But one of my favorite memories, I think, was the old configuration where we used to come out of the back section and then we go all the way down turn 11. Was it turn 11, that last corner?
Turn 11, yeah.
And I wasn't in the race, I don't think. I think I was working the race. Pretty sure I wasn't. You
didn't
were.
Qualify, huh?
Hello, is this thing on? Hello?
Did you qualify?
No,
I just didn't know. Maybe that's what the reason was.
No, I was working.
No,
I was working. Oh. So it was back when Doug Poland was on it was 750 Supersport. Doug Poland was on Pirellis. Remember? I think you were racing in it.
Oh, I remember.
God, who was it? Anthony Lupo. So Tony Lupo
cleaned him out. That was the race that got red flagged 4 times. Cleaned
him out in that last corner. Right, came from I don't know. I mean, it was like 5 bike lengths, but I'll just say it's 20 bike lengths back.
I was just saying, let's call it 30.
Let's call it 30 bike lengths. And he just didn't grab the brake lever till late. Tucked the front, cleaned them both out. And the thing I remember the most about that was that the hay caught fire, and the corner worker's solution was to run over and throw more hay on top of it to put the fire out.
God.
And
yeah,
up it went.
It was an interesting day. We had a bunch of red flag restarts. That's actually the day I won the championship, to be honest with you, in that race. And
that's right. That's what it was.
And Steve Rapp was on a cycle gear 600 and so fast. That was like his local spot. That's kind of where Steve made a name for himself. But yeah, I mean, and that was when we used to run the old turn 11, and then we'd come through there, and they built a sort of a makeshift chicane. We had 2 chicanes there at one time, didn't we? Because you'd come out of turn 11, they had a chicane led onto the front straightaway, and then had the makeshift turn 1 that they now run. But now instead of going all the way down to turn 11, they kind of do a little button hook around the building there, shorten that little section out to where it's not going to be as quick. But I think Sonoma is an important place to have on the calendar. It would be great to see them do some more upgrades to it, because over the years, they've tried to get more bike friendly, but I know for the people that have never been to Sonoma and they go there the first time, it's a little bit of an eye opener, because there's a lot of blind corners. It's really bumpy now, Greg. I rode up there just a month or so ago. It's very bumpy. But it's stood the test of time. It's kind of like Laguna, Road Atlanta, those kind of places that have been around for a long, long time. And I think it's an important venue to go. It's a tremendous spectator track. If you've never been to Sonoma, usually the fences get lined with motorhomes. They have the last couple of years. The spectator turnout's been pretty good. But you can, if you go up to turn 2, and I know you and I have done this in the past, you go to turn 2, you could pretty much see the whole track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good track that way. I know MotoAmerica is doing a huge push, and something that they're trying new to get the advertising, get the word out. I mean, even if I open up Facebook where I live on the East Coast, I'm getting Sonoma stuff that's popping up, probably because the algorithm, they know I like motorcycle stuff, which is unusual. Usually it's kind of like defined by region, but safe to say that Sonoma is the most physically demanding track on the circuit. No place to rest.
There's no place to rest. Atlanta seems to give our riders a lot of issues because of the quick transitions, and the gyros are spinning pretty fast going down to the S's. So you heard a lot of people complaining of arm pump. I would say that Sonoma is the busiest. Yes, I think it's the busiest track, no question, because of you're right. There's no rare rest. There's not really any big straightaways there. But yeah, I physically demanding. I think that the heat will be pretty hot up there. When I was up there a few weeks ago, I was up there the week prior to Utah. So what's that, a month ago or so, I guess now.
Yeah. And
it was 103 degrees. So it gets pretty steamy. I think that'll be the hardest thing, is just the heat, the conditions, the track being a little bit bumpy. It's going to be a very physical track. I just feel like there's a flow. If you can get into a good flow around Sonoma, it's such a great track. It's so much fun.
Speaking of great tracks and actually better weather than you were talking about at Sonoma, was WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca a couple weeks ago. Why don't we go back and review some of the stuff? We'll review class to class, talk about winners championship, and then what we can expect for Sonoma, Jay. So
yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
All righty. You want to start us off with Superbike?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Laguna Seca was kind of the spot where we saw Garrett Gerloff just start to shine. We've been saying it all year long about, when the kid wins, he's going to win by a lot, and hopefully he gets into a little bit of a winning streak. But I mean, when you look back at the race, and I did, it's very rarely, Greg, that I go back. I never watch replays of the races, mostly because I can't stand listening to myself. But it's true. Are you like that at all? Do you hate listening to yourself?
100%. Can't stand it. I mean, I have to get better, but yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, same as me. But it actually was, in my eyes, the most perfect case scenario, the most perfect case everything for Garrett. He was aggressive on the first lap. Tony made a small error in the corkscrew. Garrett jumped on that and literally put his head down, and on new tires with a full tank of fuel, where we know Tony has struggled a little bit, he was able to pull away in a way that Tony never really was never really a factor. Like at one point he trimmed the race lead down to 3.9 or whatever it was. Garrett had that little moment up over turn 1, but otherwise he rode flawless. He rode perfect. So I think when I leave Laguna Seca that night, the two things I thought about the most was the coming of age of Garrett winning his first Superbike race, and the fact that Tony has a stranglehold right now on our championship, because he just looks like he has taken the bike that he's got underneath him. He knows what he wants out of it. He gets what he wants out of it. He rides intelligently. And really, his only focus right now is beating Cameron.
So let's recap, though. Race 1 was Tony Elias, who won it by 0.7 of a second over Gerloff and Cameron Beaubier. Beaubier was 2.4 back, but that was a lot tighter. And that was also a race where Josh Herrin made that big mistake in turn number 6. So that's why he wasn't really, in podium contention. JD Beach was there for a while. He ended up 4th. And then Jake Lewis, David Anthony, Cam Peterson, Sam Federico, Jeremy Coffey, and Max Flinders. In race 2, it was Garrett Gerloff, 4.4 seconds, the largest margin of victory we've had so far in 2019. And Jason, if you add up the total margin of victory for all the 12 races that we've had, it's just over 20 seconds, and 4.4 of those was in this race. So Tony was 2nd, Cameron was 3rd. That was, I think, a huge disappointment for Cameron because he thought he was going to be able to get some points back in this championship. Herrin was 4th. Then you had JD Beach, Skoltz, Jake Gagne, Jake Lewis, Cam Peterson in 9th, Jason Uribe, who's now actually injured, so it looks like he's not going to be able to participate. Gilbert, who was on Michael Gilbert on the Team Norris Kawasaki, he actually was able to participate in this one, as was Travis Wyman, usually a stock 1,000 competitor. So Gilbert scoring some points, 11th and 12th, Jeremy Coffey, Max Flinders, and Sam Federico points. So a lot less attrition in race number 2 in that one, just like you're talking about, Jay. And I would have to agree with you on the Tony Elias side. I think here we are now, a little over a year down the road in terms of the new Dunlop rear tire, the larger tire that they struggled with this time last year. And I think that Suzuki just has it figured out at this point.
A great rider always kind of takes what they have and they utilize it the best they can. And Tony just has managed to be able to do that on the Yoshimura bike. And, when we talk about Cameron Beaubier at that round specifically, I don't think I've ever seen him that frustrated, and he should have been, because no matter what he did, I think he had the pace to go with Garrett, but I don't feel that obviously Tony did whatever he could to try to disrupt Cameron as much as he possibly could and make it difficult. And there was one point in the race where Cameron got through and Tony went underneath him going into turn 11, and it stood Cameron up. And what that allowed was Josh Herrin to also nip in there and get up and pass Cameron. And it was almost like seeing the air deflate out of a balloon, even though Cameron continued to push forward and continued to push as hard as he could.
Are you talking about race 1?
Race 2, actually.
Race 2, okay. Yeah.
And the writing was on the wall, and at that point, it was like you just felt for Cameron, because he doesn't have the steam down the straightaways right now. If you're just going to be honest, and you look at what we see on TV, the acceleration of the Yosh bike, it accelerates a little bit more, and it allows Tony and Josh to just kind of ride around those guys. But Garrett had just checked out, and he at that point was able to run his own pace and his own race. And like I said, the telecast, you've said it many times, that when he's out front and he's got that kind of clean air, and he can do kind of what he wants. We saw it when he was on the 600. He's able to just kind of get away from people, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're looking at now, when you look at just the Yamahas in general, not just the factory bikes, the Monster Energy Yamaha factory bikes versus the Yosh Suzukis, but when you're looking at it in general, I think what you're looking at, to me, is the Suzuki is more point and shoot and has really comes off the corner strong. The Yamaha needs clear track in front of them because it's more of a corner speed, almost what we see in GP versus, say, a Ducati and a Honda, isn't it? And
yes,
that's one of the things that Garrett was able to, there's a deficit down the straightaway. There's only really one place, maybe two, coming out of 6, the Suzukis could kind of close up, but it was really over the crest of turn 1, out of 11, over the crest of 1 and down into 2 where the Suzukis were shining. But Gerloff was so much faster in the corners that, and that was it. When I talked to Cameron's crew after race number 1, and I went to his crew chief, and we were talking, and I was just like, so how did you view the race from watching it, back in the pits and watching it on TV? And he was just like, look, when Cameron went to the front and couldn't pull away, I knew we were in trouble, because he knows his rider well enough to know the body language and the way that he's able to, if Cameron's out front, just like Garrett Gerloff, and he's got a clear racetrack, he should be able to control the pace until someone stuffs him. But the fact that he was vulnerable and that Elias just came right back at him and roughed him up in race 1. And that's when Rick Hobbs, his crew chief, knew he was in some trouble. So
yeah,
I kind of had that mindset, going into race 2. And so that bit you were just talking about made a lot of sense to me, because it was like, if Cam got out there front, unless he was able to control the pace for at least a few corners, he was doomed.
Yeah, it was doomed. And he was, when you see a rider like Cameron making some of the passes that he did on the level that Tony Elias is at, like coming down from Rainy down into turn 10, that's such big commitment. And he was doing it. He did it a lot of laps. Like, he was able to make that pass kind of stick. If Cameron tried to go up underneath Tony in turn 11, the problem is that his angle, his degree going into the corner had been closed off so much because he was tighter, and it just ruined his exit. And man, you could just see him trying so hard to be creative and try to do things, and it just wasn't meant. I think the other thing too, Greg, that when you really look at it, when we look back and we kind of think about the first race at Utah, when we had 7 or 8 bikes up there in the front, Cameron was leading. And if you remember that race, he kind of had a bit of a problem, and he kind of had everybody queued up behind him. The next day, the pace dropped significantly, and it was kind of the guys that we were talking about with Cameron and Tony and Garrett and that. If you look at some of the chasers now, we're definitely seeing those factory bikes being able to get away from JD a little bit and Skultz a little bit, and like at Laguna, JD ends up almost 12 seconds back in the second race. Matthews 22 seconds back. And I just think that those guys up at the front now have really pushed the pace so much. And now you got Garrett up there doing the same. I mean, Garrett ran in the minute 24s for lap after lap after lap, didn't he? I mean, he got back down into the 24s, I think, on the second race there with like 4 to go, I want to say. And the pace now is just, it's so tremendously fast at the front. So when we go into Sonoma, though, I feel like it's another track where if you get the right flow around there, a guy like Matthew Skultz can go really good there. Obviously, Heron and some of those. But Cameron doesn't really have anybody that can get between him and Tony right now to try to like chomp back into some of those points.
Yeah, the key is, if we look forward to Sonoma, MotoAmerica has only been going there since 2017. And so far, we've run 4 races there. Cameron's won all 4. The first one was by 6.1 seconds. Again, Garrett Gerloff just won Laguna, our largest margin of victory of the year, 4.4 seconds.
Yeah.
So when I say that Cameron wins by 6 seconds, that's a big deal.
Yes.
Okay. He won race 1 by 6 and 17. He won race 2 by 7.2. He won race number 1 last year by 7.2 and won race 2 by 6.5. And that was after he slowed down a little bit, after having a commanding lead.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, though, Jay, that for sure we can't give it to Cameron, because we've heard it on this podcast plenty of times. Yamaha really didn't test anything. It's the same bike as it was last year. And I know that you're talking about a Yoshimura Suzuki that got a new link with a couple races to go at the end of the year that Daisuke was trying to get for Tony Elias. It's one that only Tony runs. Okay, the linkage on the rear suspension, because of that new big tire. It was part of why mid-season, mid-late season, they were really struggling. They get the link. They started to get it figured out because, as we saw, Tony felt like the bike wasn't squatting enough for him with the link that they had. And so Daisuke actually created a link, got it approved through Suzuki, through Yosh. It was just, like political nightmare, right? But they get this link. They're working. They keep getting better and better. Yes, the bike has got issues, obviously. It wiggles on a straightaway, but we don't have any straightaways at Sears really or at Sonoma.
Be careful,
Sears,
Greg. You're going to get the internet police all over you.
Yeah, at Sonoma.
Yep.
So I don't think, with the way that Yamaha seems to be at the moment, with the factory bikes in terms of Cameron, I wonder if Cameron's 6.5 second margin of victories for the last 4 races is going to hold up or completely evaporate, because now you have a very confident Garrett Gerloff, you have a Tony Elias who's in command of this championship, and you have a Cameron Beaubier that seems to be slipping ever so slightly. Not him as a rider,
No.
but just the entire program. Like they just haven't hit all the cylinders that they usually do. It's usually we've seen with Cam, right? Kind of a lackluster beginning, and then around round 4 they start to take command of him. Last year was a perfect example in the championship, but this year I think I'm kind of sitting back going like, okay, when is this going to happen?
Yeah.
But now I'm having to question at round 7, is it going to happen?
I agree. I agree, because I think you and I, we went into Utah thinking that might be a track that Cameron could do well at, and Tony doubles after his mishap at Road America. Then at Laguna, Cameron had the pace to win. I mean, he was fastest in practices and qualifyings and things leading up to it. And I know Garrett got pole, but he was very fast. And then, just really struggled getting the results that he wanted to there. And now you're going to a track that truly, it seems like a Cameron Beaubier track, like just what you mentioned there. But he's going to have a teammate now that's coming in off a race win, who's going to have a lot of confidence. It'll be interesting to see how Tony treats it. One thing I find really funny, Greg, is it's a 39-point lead. It's a 39-point lead right now for Tony.
Yeah.
We got 8 rounds left. If Cameron wins every race, Tony finishes second in every race, Cameron will win the championship by a point. And
oh my God, you did math. Congratulations, Jason.
See that? I'm pretty smart, Greg. Don't sell me short. I'm doing your job right now. I'm doing these stats things,
Okay, all right.
But I mean, look, the chances of him winning 8 in a row, is it possible? 100%. But I just feel that right now, Tony's might have a little bit better package underneath him, and he's going to ride smart to do whatever he can. But this is where Cameron could really use his teammate to get in between him and Tony a little bit. But that said, Garrett's only 65 points out. I mean, if anything was to happen with these two guys in front of him, Garrett's not completely out of it. So,
nope. You know what's funny, Jay, is I look at 39 points, and in a normal season, and I'm going to qualify that later. In a normal season, I would say, oof, man, Tony's in control. I mean, all he's got to do really is just kind of cruise it home. Now, You do bring up a point, okay, 8 wins in a row. It's been done, right? We saw in World Superbike, we saw Colin Edwards do it on Troy Bayliss. But a 39-point race lead right now, after watching World Superbike and the colossal collapse of Alvaro Bautista in that series. Tony doesn't collapse like that because we know Tony's a champion, but it is racing and anything can happen, okay? Anything can happen. A mistake by Tony, a win by Cameron Beaubier, and next thing you know, we're like, boom, at 14 points, you know? So,
exactly right.
It's 39 is 39, and most seasons I would say, everything's under control, but we don't know. So we anticipate good weather at Sonoma, but then we go back to Pittsburgh, we go back to New Jersey and Barber, all potential rain races, like anything can happen. So
never rains in Jersey.
Never
rains in Jersey.
Or
but I think you're right, and it's the championship itself is definitely way, way far from being over. It's right now. I think that we just passed up some tracks that I believe that if you were to ask him probably prior to the rounds, Cameron would have thought he'd probably get a pretty big point haul. And Tony won 3 out of the last 4 races. So,
well, Jay, with that mindset, with what you're just saying, then if Cameron doesn't double at Sonoma Raceway, is it over for him this season? You get what I'm saying?
I think it's going to make it. Very, very difficult. I do. I think at that point, championship wise, you got 6 races, and you got a guy who's already a world champion, who's already a Superbike champion, in Tony Elias. That's gonna, he's going to use his brain. He's going to be smart. He wants to win races. He wants to stamp his authority on the championship, but in the same side, he's a very smart individual. And, I think that it'll be very difficult for Cameron. I see him having a great weekend. I just looked up the weather incidentally. It's only going to be in the low 80s to mid 80s, which is perfect up in that area. So when you look at it, Greg, I hate to say the championship's going to be over, because like what you were saying earlier, we've seen some pretty big collapses in the past, even, and obviously this year with World Superbike, but I just feel that somebody of Tony's caliber is not going to make any big errors going with those last 3 rounds to go.
Hopefully they'll show up and get it clicking. I can tell you that I did speak with a couple people on the Westby Racing side of things, and you had mentioned like this might be a good track, Sonoma Raceway, for a guy like Matthew Skoltz. One of the things the team is doing, Jason, is they're going to hit the reset button on the year, and what that really means is that they feel like that they bit off a little bit more than they could chew in terms of they're not focusing on the fundamentals, the real basic things. They're not giving Matthew an opportunity to get as much track time as he possibly can. Little mistakes like fuel line popping off of, here and there, like little tiny
and that
things.
happens. I mean, yeah,
of course it does.
That happens.
It's all part of the team dynamic, isn't it? And
Yes.
again, it's a privateer team. It's a smaller team. It's not, the resources of factory or the amount of the people. I mean, keep in mind, factory racing is not unlimited resources by any stretch of the imagination, but, and Westby's a well-funded team, but still they have very limited in terms of the amount of people that they have. So what I was told was the team's going to just kind of hit the reset button. They're going to go back to the fundamentals, back to the basics. They are taking ownership of, if you look at really the board, you get to round 5, DNF, you get to round 10, didn't start, round race 11, DNF, only 10 points scored. Nobody on that team is looking at Matthew Skoltz saying it's him as a rider. They're all saying it's as a team effort. It's on our shoulders. We're going to hit the reset button. So I think if it really works the way they think it's going to work, and I'm actually confident it will, then I think you're going to see all of a sudden Matthew Skoltz now kind of back to where we thought he could be, especially with the new electronics. Absolutely. Yeah. Because he's got a podium already this year, but we have not seen him even close to a podium since the second race at Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta, I guess is what it's called, right?
Yeah, we saw him, and obviously in Utah he had pace and ended up second there, I believe. And it's one of those things where Matthew, I rate. There's so many of our riders, I just rate them high. I think all of them are very good. But at the level that everybody is at now, this is where the experienced teams, the guys that have been around in the big rigs, this is where that experience comes in. And it's so hard for teams like Attack and Westby and Scheibe Racing, and you go right down the list. Man, this is those little tenths of a second that things just have to be really perfect. And if they're not just where they need to be, you're already giving up a little bit to start. And then if you're not really on top of things, or you're just missing something small, then you struggle a little bit more. And because I think all the riders are amazing. All those teams, by the way, are great. But it's just, like you say, Greg, it's just figuring it out.
And real quick, Kyle Wyman update for those that, saw him crash out of race 2 and broke his hand. Was it race 2 or race 1? I can't remember now.
It was race 2.
Race 2, yeah, race 2.
Yeah.
No, it was race 1.
No, it was race 1. It was race 1. Him and Uribe.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and he didn't get to race. He did send me a text message, and he said that he rode at the school yesterday and today that it swelled up immediately, but it's manageable at a school pace. So he says, look, the bone is definitely not healed yet, but he does have that screw in it. So he's going to try to race at Sonoma. So, when we are recording this, we're 9 days away. And Jason, as you know, with an injury like that, 9 days could make a huge difference. So
correct.
For all you Ducatisti out there or Kyle Wyman fans, he's planning on being there.
And he's young. I mean, he's going to be healing quick. He's a healthy guy. So, he's just got to continue to let that bone heal. It's a pain in the ass, that bone, because it's the blood flow to it is so limited. But it's good that he got it healed. He got it going right away. Had surgery on it, but he should be okay to ride up there. And you know what, Greg? This is where it will be a physical track. Now you wish he was probably going to like a Road America or something,
or Daytona. Yeah. One more thing before we move on to Supersport, because I want to get to Supersport, is just there's been some chatter around the internet about Sonoma Raceway and the track record and Ben Spies being the fastest guy there and all that stuff. Spies had the record from 2008. It was a 1:34.731. But you got to keep in mind, in qualifying last year on those Dunlop qualifying tires, Cameron Beaubier went a 1:34.071. That's the fastest Superbike time ever recorded around Sonoma Raceway in its current configuration, Jay, because you've said it's been it's had so many different configurations. So, but will he be able to do that? We don't have the yellow tire one lap wonder anymore. We have the red tire, which is a 3 or 4 lap tire. And like you're saying now, the information I'm getting from you is it's bumpy. It's bumpy.
It is a little bit bumpy. I always like tracks like that, though. I think it brings out, the guys who are really going to put the grind and the work in to get their bikes working the best that they can. They're the ones that are always going to shine through. And look, we got a bunch of tough people in our paddock, and Everyone's going to go there ready to rip it. And I love it because it's, for you and I, it's probably, I don't know, I think it's probably the best booth that we commentate out of.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's as far away from the TV truck as we can get, but unfortunately, but yes, we are up high. Yeah, it's like we're like a football booth almost. Like we're part of a, yeah, it's really good. It's a fun one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Supersport, Jay, because the rest of the classes we're going to talk about from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca only had one race each. So Supersport had one race. And in that race, it was Bobby Fong, 1.6 seconds over PJ Jacobsen, Richie Escalante, 3.9 back, Sean Dillon Kelly, 5.6. Then you had Joshua Kurt Hayes, Bryce Prince, Jason Aguilar, and McFadden in 8th, Lucas Silva, Caroline Olsen in 10th place. Is that her first top 10 finish in Supersport? For sure this year.
Yeah. I think Caroline, she'd been in the top 10 once or twice before when she was on Superstock. And, when the two classes were combined. So I think that was her first top 10 in a while for the last 2 years, but since it's been Supersport only. So yeah.
Jarrett Nassani, Benjamin Smith, Nolan Lampkin, Robert Pierce, and Aaron Graham are points finishers. Who you didn't hear about in that one, Hayden Gillum. He DNF'd, and he ended up putting his ridiculous racing Yamaha on the top of the air fence. That was quite a spectacular video to watch after the fact, especially when he got up and he saw his bike sitting on top of the fence.
Yeah, we've seen that before too, haven't we, in that corner, Greg, where bikes just like launch and they get up on top of the air fence. And, Hayden was charging, he was coming forward, and, he put it on pole. Looked like it was going to be a good weekend for him. Didn't get the greatest start. Kind of came through some guys, started chipping away at Bobby's lead, and just got into turn 5, lost the front, and that was the end of that. So, again, we've seen this already this year a little bit with, the mistakes that have been made by some of the top 600 riders, and this was a race where, I don't know, man, something changed for me with Bobby in my mind. Like,
I was going to ask you that.
He just seems like he's
all of a sudden, he's championship Bobby all of a sudden.
He is. He's
never been before because he's never won.
I think that
you get what I'm saying?
It almost, you see these guys change in a way where it's like they feel that that's where they belong now. Like it's not a shock to them to be winning races. It's not a shock to them to be seeing their name up on the front afterwards. All that stuff is kind of one of those things where, honestly, Greg, I look at the influence of somebody in this particular case. I look at the influence of somebody that Bobby's beating right now, and that's Josh Hayes. I mean, Josh has worked with Bobby now for a couple of years. When you got a guy that's experienced like that in your corner, it gives you confidence. And I think that there's just been a little bit of a change to him in the last couple rounds. And I go back again to that interview before the first race at Utah, where Bobby said, I'm just going to do the best I can today. If we need to make changes for tomorrow, we're going to do that. We're going to just try to get as many points as we can. And he finished second, and then he came back and won the next day. I think that just changed something in him, because at Laguna, he was so comfortable pulling away and looked so good doing it, and put the pressure on the rest of the field to catch him, which, credit to PJ Jacobsen, because PJ pushed all the way to the end, and he only ended up 1.6 back. But Greg, watching the race, didn't ever really seem like it was close. Like, it never really seemed like it was 1.6 seconds. It always seemed a bit bigger to me, and that was because of Bobby and just how he rode.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think race 3 at Virginia, when he ended up like crashing and then getting up and kind of going back down, and that whole ruckus that happened, it just seems like since he didn't get to start race 4, which was the second round at Virginia, that things just seem to be different with him. Like, he's just kind of more focused. I know that he, that he had the job, so now the job's gone because whatever. I'm not even going to get into the reasons, but let's just say that there were things said when he had the job and he got the ride that didn't pan out. So he's now full-time racer again. And I mean, if you look at it, Jay, besides Virginia, which was total disaster for Bobby, he hasn't finished lower than second place. I mean, it's been second win. So, where it just seems like this entire season that Hayden Gillum and his team have just been not completely on their back foot, but they're not on the balls of their feet ready to pounce. They're on the heels.
Well, we've seen some rider errors. That's the third race, I think, that Hayden's actually. I mean, he got 6 points, I think, at Road Atlanta when he crashed coming to the line when he ran off in the grass and gave it a big handful of grass, and he probably dropped back 4 spots. So he gave some points away there. He gave points away at VIR in that big crash that we saw coming out of the last corner there. That was a big one. Then we saw again here at Laguna, a place where, boy, I bet Hayden wished there could have been 2 days there to try to redeem himself the second day. I thought his interview after his accident was super chill. Like, you could tell he's like, yeah, I just got in there a little deep and all of a sudden the front folded and it's okay. We got a lot of season left. And what is he? He's 18 points back. But you're right.
He's right. He's got a lot of season left.
A lot of season left.
Wait a second.
A lot of season.
Wait a second. Bobby raced 2 at VIR.
Yep.
Was that the one in the rain when he crashed coming on the front
straightaway? Yes.
That's right. So he did start that race. I don't know why I said what I said earlier.
No.
I take that back.
He didn't start the restart of the race that he fell in race 1. He didn't get to restart that one, and then they put him in race 2. So it's hard to remember everything, G-Dub. So I agree with you. And when it's hard. But if you look, all these guys, like the first 3 guys have all had crash DNFs. PJ Jacobson right now in 30s, 37 points back. He kind of found a little bit of something. I talked to Barry Gilsonen, who runs the Celtic team, and they went testing prior to Laguna. They went and had a couple of days where they really worked on some different aspects of the bike and some different aspects of what they were trying to give PJ a little bit more feel. And it seemed like that they found that. So it might be a good time that PJ can make a big push here with 4 rounds to go. Again, PJ, I want to say he had been there, but he said, I think maybe he hadn't ever been there. I saw him 6 weeks ago up there as well, and we talked. And he was just on a road bike R6 he was just out there riding around on street tires and just getting a look at the place. I think it's going to be an important event for him if he wants to keep himself in the championship. He's got to try to, if he can get that point lead down to, let's say, under 30 when he leaves here. He's 37 back now. That would be a big thing. But then you look at 4th place, Richie Escalante. He has just been the model of consistency. He hasn't not finished a race. He's finished every single race that he started. I love that model of consistency. He's been on the podium once, and he's another guy. He's 37 points back.
He's been on the podium 4 times, Jay. Sorry,
4 times. Yeah, because he was on the podium at VIR, and he was on the podium again at Laguna. Oh, was he on the podium in Atlanta?
Yeah, race 2, Escalante. He finished 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah. So 3rd, 2nd. Yeah. So he's had 3 thirds and a 2nd place finish. Yep. But that's the thing, Jay. But what you're saying right there is that's what Richie Escalante seems like he's doing. He's kind of sneaking really up on this championship, isn't he? It's just like he's not doing anything spectacular. He's not doing anything crazy. He just keeps kind of chipping away at these races, and his team's doing a great job of putting a bike underneath him. And I know that they've been testing. But the thing that's interesting with Escalante is that we have seen him at the beginning of the season not do really well on brand new tires. And then he and his crew chief working hard on that. But now the last couple races, he hasn't been as strong of a finisher as he was before. So I think what we could see from Escalante is if they can find that midpoint where he's going to be good on both sectors, very beginning, brand new tires, full fuel load, before the thing starts to move around a bit. And once it gets the full move mode where it's spinning and sliding and everything else, if they can find the balance for him, then all of a sudden now we have a 4 or 5 horse race. If Bryce Prince shows up, if Josh Hayes shows up, now we're talking 7 riders for the lead.
Yeah, and you look at it like there'll be some more close racing throughout the course of the year with some of the tracks that we're going to. I just think that Sonoma is a bit of a you love it or you hate it kind of track, and
I hate it.
I love it. And the guy that we cannot forget talking about here, and you mentioned his name, is Sean Dillon Kelly. I mean, he did not start at VIR, if you remember. He crashed in qualifying. They couldn't get the bike back together, so he had a DNS there. Other than that, the kid has been unreal. Like, seriously, the kid's been unreal. I think he's got 3 or 4 podiums himself this year, and he ends up 4th at Laguna Seca. And he only finishes a couple seconds behind Escalante. He kind of pushed him to the line Only 5.6 off the win. And he has just been, I love it. I love watching him, his whole program, how he goes about doing his things on weekends, doesn't make big mistakes, very mature, really going to be a bright light for our series, I think, for the future as well. And you mentioned Bryce Prince. I think when I look at Bryce, he ends up 6th behind Josh Hayes. Josh finished 5th, 10.9 back. I've had some good discussions with Josh, and he just says, Jay, I think I have a bike that's capable of winning. There's just little things that, his life is a lot different now than it was when he was a factory rider.
You're not kidding. Yeah.
I mean, busy-wise, I'm talking about in the paddock and his life in general, having a son. And, Melissa does such a good job getting the bikes together. And there's just a lot going on for him that I'm not going to say that they're distractions, because it's just life, isn't it? It's just life.
It is.
But there are just things that he has not made any kind of excuses whatsoever about where he's finishing. But Sonoma has always been a good track for him. Do you remember where Josh Hayes won his first Superbike race?
I'll go with Sonoma since we're talking about it.
That's right. He beat Matt Mladen at Sonoma. And
on what bike? On the Yamaha, yeah.
On Superbike, yeah. And so when you look at it, it's one of those things where he'll be up there if and I don't really know what the status is, because the MP13 racing team, they're kind of going race by race right now. So, but I think those top 6 guys are the kind of guys that we've been talking about all year. And Sonoma will be another good round for that.
Yeah. It's looking like it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that race.
A lot going on. So let's talk a little bit about this Liqui Moly class. Okay. I think that we left Utah. We saw Dallas Daniels get his first victory, and did it in great fashion, by the way. And everybody was like, "Oh, this is great for Dallas." We were super fortunate enough to have Dallas on our live podcast in the paddock there at Laguna Seca that I enjoyed doing with you. That was a lot of fun. We had Dallas on there. I think Sonoma, he's going to be rocking his new Nicky Hayden replica helmet. And I saw yesterday it was Nicky's birthday. I saw your post about that, and Rogers as well. Mm-hmm. So we're always thinking about Nick. And but there was a guy, Rocco Landers, who kind of went, all right, somebody beat me. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. Put his head down during those 2 or 3 weeks off, talked a lot about how he trained harder and he did some things. And I mean, Greg, it was as dominant as any races you've ever seen, wasn't it? Rocco winning by almost 10 seconds. It wasn't even that close. And he just went, didn't he?
He spanked him.
Yeah.
The next close, so he did a best time of a 137 flat. And as I remember that race, I think it was pretty late in the race when he did it. No one was pushing him. He was just pushing himself.
Yeah.
The next fastest lap was the 37.6 by Kevin Olmedo, who finished 3rd. That's 0.6 of a second in terms of your fastest lap. I mean, you think about it. You kind of look at it and you have to say, okay, even if they back it down. So let's say that he was doing 38s. Then you would think that Kevin Olmedo is going to be doing, 38.6 at his best. Mm-hmm. 0.6 a second a lap. For I don't even know how many laps they did. Were they 12 laps on that one? I mean, you sit there and you go, whoa. Rocco was just in control. He was comfortable. He was confident. And just like you said, Jay, we had a question on how was Rocco going to respond to getting beat heads up. And the answer is, I don't know, a 9.2 margin of victory.
Yeah. It was a pretty big dominant display. And when you look at the lap time, 37 flat to the next best 37.6, Rocco did multiple laps under 37.6. Like he was 37.2s and 3s and 4s and just continuously putting a second a lap on guys, and he never looks ruffled doing those times. Like it just seems like those times kind of come easy to him. Josh Cernay was a great kid to see, Northern Cal guy, running for Floyd's of Leadville there. And when you see what he did, it was good to see him kind of keeping himself in that battle. He also got into the minute 37 round, minute 37 range, battling for podiums. And then your girl, Karen Agura, Karen Agura, right?
Yeah, Karin. Yep, exactly. Yep. Karin Ogura. But the interesting thing is she's the only Yamaha in the whole field, Jay.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's just gone
full Cowie now. Yamaha. Full Cowie. I mean, other than Cameron Jones, our boy on the Honda.
Yes.
That's it. And Karin had a good race. She was able to get fifth by 0.004 of a second over Dominic Doyle.
She barely beat him, at the line.
Barely beat him, but she did beat him. And Jay, so that's my thing looking at this class. So like you're saying, you had Landers, Daniels, Olmedo, Cerne, Ogura. Then you had Dominic Doyle, then Jackson Blackman in 7th, Gage Reese, Brendan Kettleson, Hunter Dunham. These are all names we know.
Yes.
So the thing is if Josh Cerne is only in for this round, maybe, Sonoma because he's an NorCal guy.
For sure.
Karin's only in for one more race. Now you're talking about from basically third place down to your next finisher, a Dominic Doyle and Jackson Blackman. You're talking about a 10 to 12 second difference if they can stay within 10 seconds of Rocco. So, it's like this field has got to figure out how to step up and start to close the gaps, not to Rocco, but maybe just to third place, because this championship is all Landers, all Daniels, and all Olmedo at this point.
Well, yeah, right now Rocco's got this thing, where he wants it again, and Sonoma will be a track that's going to be really fun to watch him at because, and I'm sorry, Greg, is Karin coming to this one?
Yeah, this is her last. This should be her last one. Yeah,
and then she goes back and races in Japan. Is that
yes?
I mean, that's what the thing is. So everything else probably conflicts for her.
I would think so.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes because she's been impressive. But yeah, we've seen the three guys that finished on the podium here again were the three guys that we've seen up there. Two other guys that didn't finish this race that were both there for briefly were Mark Edwards. If you remember, Mark Edwards and Toby Kramsuk, they both crashed in the same corner a lap after each other. So Toby crashed in turn 4, and then Mark Edwards crashed literally a lap later. Almost looked like he got out on the rumble strip and lost it on the sand that Toby had left behind. And but both those guys kind of figured themselves into that battle. There was like 6 of them all up there. But I don't know really what people can do to close this gap on other than they got to beat him or he's got to make a big mistake, because right now that point lead has just it's spreading itself back out again. And I think if he goes up and does a double up at Sonoma, it's going to be hard to catch back up. We've only really seen that one race, Greg, in the rain where he was on slicks, and as was Dallas. Dallas was able to put it on the podium there at VIR, and Rocco, he was a little bit further. I think Dallas finished 4th, and then Rocco was further back. So yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. I that's one of my favorite races.
Me too. It's fun to watch Rocco ride. All right, you want to move on? As by the way, Rocco has a 26-point lead in the championship over Dallas. So with 8 races to go in the series. All right, moving on to Stock 1000 and a good race at the championship of Monterey. Andrew Lee, not quite a second over Jeff May, Stefano Mesa, Travis Wyman in 4th, Michael Gilbert in 5th, Andy DeBrino in 6th, Sebastio Ferreira in 7th, Miles Thornton, Doug Frenchek, and then on back through the field. Melissa Paris was in the race. She got a couple points, finishing in 14th. So once again in this race,
you're not going to tackle George's name, huh? You're just going to skim by it.
Who? George who?
He finished 10th. I know George. The only reason I know of George because I looked at the AFM results. So I think George is a NorCal guy, but he finished 10th. And George has got a name that you and I are going to have to go up and actually figure out how he says it.
Mashilyayev.
Okay.
That would be my guess. Mashilyayev.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's a good effort. It's a great effort, but we'll have to go talk to him. I'm going to find out. Even though you and I don't commentate on this race, we don't watch it, but it's always nice to know some of these guys because I don't know Doug Frenchek either. So to see him finish 9th is, I mean, you look at that class now, Greg. If you legitimately look at the first 8 guys, they're all guys that we've heard of and talked about before. Where last year we only had a couple, and now we've got 8 guys that we can legitimately say we know who these guys are, and so. A non-finisher there, Bradley Ward. I know Bradley, and he was up in that podium contention before he tipped off in turn 11. The race at the front with Andrew only beating Jeff by a second. It was just one of those races where, man, Andrew was just better in some spots. Jeff was just better in some spots, but he just couldn't ever really get close enough to do anything with him, could he?
No, he couldn't. And that was, but what's interesting is that Andrew, I mean, I don't even think I saw him make a mistake. I watched that race and he just looked in control. May was hounding him. and Jeff didn't have the speed in any place that you could pass that could make a move on him. But I think Jeff was playing the game of, let me just put the pressure on Andrew and see if he just makes a mistake, and then the door is going to be open. So, with Andrew Lee, I'm really impressed with him. The thing that I kind of took away from that race, though, with Andrew is that we have seen riders that in the past have had what I consider explosive speed. Somebody that can really put a lap down and try to, break the back, as it were, of the people behind them. We've seen Tony Elias do it. We've seen Cameron Bobier do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's that one. And Andrew doesn't seem to either need to take that risk. Maybe he doesn't have that tool in his toolbox yet, whatever it is. And I'm waiting to see if Andrew is going to, start to break that out, or is he, you work with the guy. Is he too smart of a rider to even worry about it because the points is so close? He's leading the championship. He's got 11 points over Mesa. Gilbert's still in the mix. May is somewhere back there. But, I just wonder if that's the next step for Andrew, because I think the guy needs to be on a superbike next year, no doubt.
Andrew, to me, has matured more this year. I said this to him. He's matured 5 years in 1 year. Like, the kid is he's different, and I love it. And he's continuously asking questions and just doing the right things. He always wants to learn. He wants to be on a superbike. He's got a lot of self-belief, tons of self-belief. He's going through the process of working through issues and trying to understand bike setup and trying not to overanalyze that stuff, but trying to know enough about it to where it can benefit him. And I just think that right now he feels like he's the guy, and we're going to arguably his best track. We're going to his home track. We're going to Sonoma. And when you look at it, I got to give this other guy a shout out, because I am so impressed with Stefano Mesa. And I don't know why I'm impressed. I mean, in the sense that I don't want to sound overly impressed, because the kid has always been a great rider. We've just never got a chance to see him, Greg, have we? I mean, we've never really seen him at the national level. And, he shows up he's got a regular job. He shows up at the track with mom and dad. So on and so forth. And he's 11 points back. That's it. He's only 11 points back. He hasn't won a race yet. Oh yeah, he did win. Where did he win at, Greg? He won at Road America, didn't he? Road America?
Yep. Yeah.
I think it was Road America.
Yeah, race number 4, which is Road America. Yep.
Okay.
Race 2, Road America.
And it was so good to see him win. And he's just been a model of consistency. He's on the podium every weekend. And we're sitting there. We've talked about Andrew Lee, and Jeff May gets all these props, and Michael Gilbert won some at the beginning, and Jeff May and Stefano Mesa has just been there. And I'll tell you right now, Greg, we're going to get back to these tracks. Pittsburgh, I don't know if I believe he's been there, but you get back to some of these East Coast tracks, Barber, Jersey, where he's gone and ran for contingency money and raced the likes of Jeff May. I tell you, Stefano's going to be really hard to beat in some of those latter rounds. And we have a double round at Barber. And, this kid has done a tremendous job keeping himself in the points. So, and now
he does. And he has proven that he does have that little bit that I was talking about. Like Mesa, if he gets out front and gets comfortable, he will try to throw in 1 or 2 heaters just to try to get a gap, you know what I mean? And see what the other guys have. So he does put himself at risk sometimes doing that. But this year has been totally different. It's a new Mesa that I've seen. It's just been fantastic. I mean, he hasn't finished off the box yet, Jay.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Really,
Andrew
really good.
Andrew has, but he was 4th, I believe, and that was after the finger, right? After the
pinky,
finger
yep. That's when he ground his finger off. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And he was disappointed in himself there for finishing 4th. And I think that because Andrew's so honest with himself, he probably felt like he could have. But man, 2 weeks prior, he wasn't even going to VIR. He's like, well, I'm going to miss VIR and I'm going to give up 25 points, but hopefully I can make that up as the year goes. And when you look back at that and you think, well, he finished 4th. Stefano finished 2nd that day, so that would have been a big jump, and Andrew would be 2nd right now to Stefano had Andrew not been there. So that was a big race for Andrew to go to and just kind of muscle his way through that weekend.
Didn't he race a club race last weekend, Andrew?
He did.
Did he race against
DeBees?
Yeah, Valentin DeBees, right? And he beat him.
Yep, you beat him at Thunder Hill in the Formula Pacific race, and again, it was 100 and something degrees up there, so those guys
Yikes.
were racing AFM. I mean, right now in California, we've got just a hotbed of, a lot of national guys. I mean, the Chuck Wallace series that starts in September and goes through April, I think is going to be slammed with tons of MotoAmerica talent because you can race all through the season out here. And AFM during the summer, I mean, we get a lot of guys going to that series as well, top guys. I mean, if you go win a club race now as a club guy, it's not easy when you've got Valentine DeBeese and Andrew Lee and these guys showing up on the grids.
Well, that championship's good. 11 points between Lee and Mesa with Gilbert 46 back. So I can't wait to see what happens at Sonoma Raceway with Stock 1000.
Yeah, and I think that you're going to get some wild card guys that are probably going to be up there. I mean, guys like Wyatt Ferris that have been there, Sebastian Ferreira, who's a local guy up there. I mean, Jeff May's obviously been around that place a bunch. Michael Gilbert, I think, Michael's been battling a few things. I think they might have found a couple things there at that race at Laguna when they went out and rode Superbike. So and I've really enjoyed watching Stock 1000. It's one of those things that usually you and I get right off the air in Superbike, and usually Stock 1000 is up. So we sit there and we watch it, don't we? So it's been a fun class to watch.
Yes, it has. It's a good one.
So, yep. All right, Greg. Well, look, let's talk about the final race that we saw this up there, and it's a bit of a sad note as well. Is stoked. I mean, look, to see Caleb DeCrail won the twins class, and I saw him on the grid, and he started 12th. And I said, Caleb, where are we going? Like, just kind of gave him a slap on the ass. Said, hey, where are we going? He goes, Jay, I'm going to the front. I said, okay. And
right. That's what you want to hear. Yeah, he did.
Did he? I mean, as a racer, we always say, hey, we're always going to the front. And this is a kid who I've watched him and his family travel the country. When road racing got a bit expensive, he turned into a professional motocrosser. I mean, that's kind of their background anyways. They'd ridden dirt bikes and stuff, but became a pro motocrosser, did some supercross, kind of chased that a little bit this year. That's what he's been doing to stay competitive. And then we've seen him back out here now in California doing some club stuff, again, both at CVMA and AFM. And the kid went to the front, won his first national. And I mean, did it in grand style, beats Michael Barnes and Alex Dumas. All those guys finished within a second of each other. Drake Beecham, Chris Turner, Jason Madama, Chris Parrish, Cooper McDonald, who we saw on the podium in Utah, and Curtis Murray and Joe Blasius rounded out our top 10. The race at the front was great. We had like 7 of these guys at the front to start with. I don't know if you got to watch the twins class, Greg, but we had 7 at the front, and then it kind of was getting splintered around and this and that. Dumas led the majority, then Barney got by, and then Caleb came through both of them and wins the race. But what you don't maybe know, or our listeners might know, is that Caleb had a big accident this weekend at Thunder Hill during AFM weekend and broke his femur. And our thoughts and stuff are definitely with him. I've been watching his posts, and he's his spirits are high, which is good. So
good, yeah.
I don't think we're going to obviously see him at Sonoma, which is a real shame coming off that win. But what a day he had at Laguna.
Yeah, I mean, he was the only one who could even dip into what was the lap time there? 131.8. Everyone else was in the low 32s. And it was great. I mean, the Twins Cup is great to watch. I don't know if you saw Chris Parrish. You've talked about like his program. He just posted up. His bike that he's Ghetto Customs Suzuki that he's coming with is a Yosh replica now. Did you see that he posted yesterday?
I didn't see that. I did not see it.
Yeah. So he does Ghetto Customs. He does paint work. I mean, he does like all the M4 X-Star Suzuki bikes. Like Chris has a job painting body work and stuff like that. So he worked on his own bike. It looks pretty good. But in terms of this championship, yeah, it's a bummer for Caleb. I mean, we hope he's going to get better. I did not see his name on the entry list for the Twins Cup, so I didn't know if he was going to maybe be a late entry for this one, if he was healthy.
Yep.
But, the entries are looking good for Sonoma across the board. Twins Cup is always fun to watch. Like you're saying, 3 riders coming across the line. In the championship in Twins, you have Michael Barnes, who's leading from Drake Beecham by 18. And you've had Dumas now 24 back. He clawed his way kind of back in there for a second or two. But so really, if you look at what Caleb was able to do, taking that 5-point gap away from, say, a Michael Barnes to Alex Dumas, it was only 4 points, the difference that could be the championship.
I agree.
You know, having wild cards in this Twins Cup race versus the riders that are racing full time. When you get somebody at that speed, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. So very interesting championship and definitely going to be fun to watch.
It was the first time all year I've seen Michael Barnes kind of fist pumping. I think that second place to him was as good as a win because he wanted to beat Alex so bad and try to keep that championship run alive. I think it's a great story seeing Michael Barnes race. And you know, I've said it many, many times through my time in racing. I think Michael Barnes was probably the most underrated guy there was. He could jump on anything and do anything. And even I think he's a year or two older than me. But you can see how competitive he still is and how good he rides. I mean, if you go out and you watch Barney ride, it's mistake free. It always looks like he's on a Sunday cruise, even though I know he's riding as hard as he can. He always looks great on a bike. But you're right, Greg. I mean, those were, when you look at it, if Dumas wins that race, Barney finishes second or even third, the championships, it just gets a lot closer. But all of a sudden, Caleb comes from nowhere, beats them both. Alex makes a mistake on the last lap as well, self-admitted. First thing he said to me, Greg, when he got to the podium, he's like, Jason, I made a mistake. I said, hey, that's racing. You'll learn from it. We'll push forward. We'll go from there. But Barney, I mean, there's the veteran guy just taking advantage of it, finishes second, almost won the race. These guys got into back markers on the last lap, Greg. There must have been about 6 back markers coming from the corkscrew down to turn 11. It was pretty crazy. And, but yeah, Barney finishes second and retains his championship. Drake Beecham had a little bit of an off day, I'd say, as far as like, you know, I know on paper he finishes 4th, finishes 8 seconds back. It's a good result for him, but we've seen him win this year. But yeah, Alex just closed the gap on him.
And got to send a shout out to Danielle Diaz, who was our first Kawasaki finisher in the Twins Cup race. She finishes 15th and snags that last point. What do you think we're going to see out of Twins for Sonoma? Pretty much the same, you think? It'll be nice and tight?
You know, I've heard that the Yamahas are a little bit heavier bike and so on. So you said at the beginning of the podcast, physical track, it might be a little bit more to throw one of those things around. It might be a good track for the SVs. So I'm looking at the Curtis Murrays and the Chris Parishes and you know, Chris Turner, some of these guys that have been fast as well as obviously Blasius and Alex Dumas. I think some of those guys might take the fight to the Yamahas a little bit more. And of course, Barney's going to be up there. He's been around that place 100,000 times. So yeah. I think I really think the Twins Cup could be one of our best races of the weekend.
All right. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And you can catch all of the Superbike races, the EBC Break Superbike classes on FS2 or Fox Sports 2. Those happen same day, so you can check those out. Other stuff like other races, practices, qualifying, plus a ton of other content is on the MotoAmerica Live Plus app. So go to MotoAmerica, check it out. You know, you can find the app and then you can buy it. It's like half price now for the rest of the season. You get all kinds of great content plus all that stuff. Also on NBCSN Sports Network, Inside MotoAmerica, which is a cool behind the scenes show hosted by our Rock, Ms. Hannah Lopa. Please share this podcast with all of your racing friends. And don't forget, at every event, Jason Pridmore signs as many autographs as you have, and they're all for free. He won't even baller out and charge you. Isn't that right, Jay?
Yeah, no, my Sharpie sponsorship ended, Greg. I can't do those anymore.
No. Oh,
yeah, it sucks.
I think I have one right here, Jay. It's not used. It's
Thanks.
3 years old and brand new. I've never had to use it. So
yeah, makes 2 of us.
Anything else you want to say before we roll on
out
of this one?
I'm looking forward to getting up to Sonoma and great weather, great racing. Hopefully we get a big crowd from the NorCal group up there and roll on to this next round.